Hi, everybody. We're just getting warmed up, waiting for everybody to get into their seats. We'll take just a moment, do a quick audio check, make sure everybody's here, got cameras on. I see Matt Plaps here with us from Driven Media Solutions. We'll do introductions in a minute. Peter Wiley's here from my team, and Darren Nicholson from iPort It with his rockin' iPort It hat on today. You're like Nadal at the end of a tennis match, how he gets all the Nike things just right. Love that stuff.
You got to look far, right?
Yep. So for those of you in the audience, stand by for just a moment, and then I'll do a quick review of the recent events we've had and lay the groundwork for this one, and we will rock right through it in 1 hour. We'll go 4 15-minute segments, and we'll have a couple interactive polls of the audience to keep things interesting. So we appreciate it if you guys click your mouse fingers and share a little bit of information about your perspectives and where you're coming from. So with that, I'm going to jump into the past events that we've had and what's been going on. This is part of a multi-part series. The first event was way back in January, where we touched on all 4 of these topics. Today's event is all about the fast casual revolution. It's changing everything in the restaurant dynamics. It's driven people down from the menu concepts, the TGI Fridays, the Red Lobsters and such, into the fast casual space where you point, look, watch your food be made, get it, and move on, generally without the aid of waitresses or servers or that sort of thing. And self-pour alcohol is changing fast casual in the same fashion that fast casual changed full-service restaurants. So we're going to talk about that a bunch and how this all works. I'm just making sure there's no fire drills here. There's Matt, you dirty rat. Let's see. The next event coming up here is April 25th. On April 25th, we're going to do a deep dive on the battle for locations. We have multiple initiatives working with build-to-suit partners, working with landlords all around the country that want to repurpose their buildings with substantial financial incentives. We have financing partners. We'll talk all about how we're doing what we're doing. Some of those ideas may inspire you. Some of those things you may say, hey, I want to work with you guys to try to figure out how you do it. We'd be happy to help. And social media marketing, that is Matt Plapp's space. Matt is, his services for our group have helped us ramp up 28 of our stores with some amazing results, and he's been helping support the webinar series. Matt's here with us today. Any comments for the group that is probably following you, Matt?
No, just excited to hear what Darren and Peter and you have to say, because I've seen the impact that the beer pouring system has had on social media, and I love to hear the results of what it's doing to help restaurants make more money.
Perfect. And I know before we met you over a year ago, you've done a lot of work for bars specifically. So you've actually seen the evolution as it transitioned from traditional servers and bartenders. And now you're seeing it happen in our stores. So we look forward to rolling through that. So that's in May 30th, last week of the month. We'll do a deep dive. Then we covered an event in February, which was our last event. The recording is available on our website. The handout is actually available to you guys in the audience. If you look, I'm looking at my monitor here, in the control panel for webinar, you will see a PDF. You can download that now. That has essentially the notes, the Cliff Notes version of the tax incentive event that we did back on February 28th. It was very well attended. We had a lot of folks come away from that, frankly, pretty amazed with what the new tax programs of last year have done for us here in the restaurant industry. So with that, I'd like to start off today with a quick poll of the audience. If you guys can get your mouse fingers warmed up, this is kind of an audience participation thing. Make sure you guys are all still awake. First question for you guys is, what best describes your experience with bars or restaurants, if you have any at all? If you're just kicking the tires and checking the space out, that's great. But please exercise your mouse fingers and click away and share with us your perspective. We'll try to adjust the talking points as we go. I see a bunch of you guys are clicking in. Thank you very much. I also see these little yellow triangles on my screen that for the people that I'm apparently not keeping the attention of. So we'll try to keep you enthused and really engaged. All right, thanks everybody for voting. And this is what everybody says. So we've got a bunch of folks currently operating stores in the space. So if we'll talk more about specifics of alcohol and the experience with that. Couple folks in the investment space. We often have real estate development partners in these, so I asked about that, but we'll stay away from real estate today. And for those of you who are new to this space, potentially from the audience that might have been invited by our partners at iPorit, we're going to talk about how you can enter this space highly effectively and efficiently, and what you can expect if you're going to jump into it and invest your resources. So with that, I want to jump into the actual quick recap of what we're going to cover today. First topic is the actual results that we achieved in our own stores and why those are causing us to put these self-pour alcohol systems into a bunch more stores. Excuse me. We will touch on with Darren. He's going to present what he calls the tapestry of patrons. For those of you who are demographics junkies, Darren views the alcohol drinking audience as a tapestry, just like the demographics folks do. He'll talk about the industry and where it's coming from and where it's going. And one of Darren's favorite topics is what he calls the 4 key challenges of deploying self-pour in your business, whether you're building a new restaurant or a bar or you're retrofitting, which we did in one case. We're doing both. We'll dive into those in some detail. And then we'll wrap this up with 4 ways to participate with self-pour systems, with us, with the kind of partners we work with. If you really want to get in the game, we can accelerate your entry. With that, we have another quick poll for the audience here. If I can find my mouse, I apologize. 1 second. Every now and then the mouse doesn't cooperate. All right. So if you could, again, a little bit of input would be super appreciated. What percent of your store sales, for those of you folks who are operating stores, what percent of your sales are actually driven from alcohol? We've seen, we have many operators in our system that operate other brands, and I've been told in their steakhouses, for example, they were lucky to get 10 or 15% alcohol sales. In our fast casual operations, we're seeing it swing wildly depending on the introduction of the product and as you sustain operations over a period of time. Thanks again for you guys that have participated. By the way, there's a raging storm going on outside my door. It's a little bit of a distraction. All right. Let's see. There's a lot of folks on here who haven't done it yet. So if you're in fast casual or quick service and you're considering retrofitting your stores, I think you're going to get excited about what we have to share today. For those of you who are currently operating, I see probably 25% of the group is actually operating stores. The up to 15% is, again, what we've understood for most people who are in traditional, full meal style restaurants where you're selling beer or wine or alcohol with the meals. And I'll talk about why that's similar to what we've seen, the up to 15% in our fast casual restaurants. And we'll talk about the larger hybrid taproom and cantina formats and how that can really grow. So we started out with this after lots of years of research. My brother Pete, who's on the line with us, Pete, you did a bunch of research on self-pour. What inspired that originally?
Number one, I like beer. I like craft beer. So I stumbled across iPorit and a couple other systems and started looking into it. How can we put this in a fast casual restaurant? I love the idea of sampling. Personally, I get a flight of beer. If you're not into beer, a flight is usually 4 to 6, 2 to 4 ounce pours of beer. So that's how I always order when I go into a restaurant. So iPorit provided that example or that option to put into a live restaurant without having to wait on a waiter or something like that. One of the biggest challenges we saw in going to the alcohol industry was literally waiting on the bartender or waiting to be served. So this really fit our model. And after evaluating a couple different systems, we ended up going with iPorit. Been very happy with it so far.
Yeah, and I think, Darren, I won't have you jump in right now, but I know Brett, one of the founders of iPorit, created the technology because he's a software geek and he was frustrated because he couldn't get a beer in a Yard House bar restaurant, right? So let's jump in. We retrofit an existing store. So this is one of our rapid fire pizza locations. For those of you in fast food, quick service, this is a 3,000-foot store. It's a queue line style. If you're familiar with Blaze or Mod, Biology, we are a competitor in that space. So essentially what we did is we added a cabinet you can see in the middle of the screen there. It was almost like a standalone cabinet. So as you come off the queue line, you come past the Pepsi machine, you can literally pour your own. The whole system runs off of a bracelet. There are kind of room key, like hotel room key style devices to operate it with. But here's what we really found. People changed their behavior when the alcohol got on the tables with them. It literally changed our fast casual environment to more of a friendly, cozy date night environment. Now, I'm not saying it was a romantic environment, although we'd like to make the lighting a little darker, right, Pete? I'm looking at the monitors there. But it created a different environment where people leaning in together, sitting in groups and talking and staying a little longer and not so much taking their food out. The key to this is Pete and I are craft beer nuts, and Pete's actually a brewer. We took the strategy of, you can see the 18 tap system on the screen, and you can see the chalkboard closer there at the bottom right. We took the strategy of rotating craft beers and ciders. We did not deploy wine in this particular case, but keeping them in kind of 3 or 4 or 5 flavor profiles, sweet and bitter and hoppy and dark, and then, of course, at Christmas, the seasonals. And we learned a few things about rotating beers. A beer that would come in, that we bring in that was totally unique, or a hot cider, if we brought it back 2 weeks later, nobody was excited about it. So when we use the term rotator or rotating taps, you're going to hear Darren talk about it. Rotating the taps continually is critical. In our 18 tap system, we change probably a half dozen kegs a week. This is the first experience we've had in marketing where, thanks to Matt's help, by the way, we found the opportunity to go viral. To me, 30,000 views on a video is viral. You know, we're accustomed to getting 1,000 customers or 2,000 customers looking at a video. This is a video. You can see it on our website or on our Facebook page, but literally within days, 30,000 people had viewed this young man pouring his own beer. We went on to do many more videos we'll talk about in a little bit that really caused us to get this wider draw pattern of customers. People were driving in. Our store is located about 30 miles, actually about 18 miles from downtown Toledo. We're a big small town where Bowling Green University is, or this particular location. What I'm showing on the left-hand side is when we do demographic studies for our stores, we focus on a 2 to 5 mile service range. There is nothing outside that 5 mile ring until you get to the next cities, except farmland. Well, what you can see on the right-hand side is a heat map that's produced by Darren's team. They literally heat map the addresses, or quite literally the zip codes, right, Darren?
That's correct.
Yeah, they're heat mapping the zip codes of where the patrons are coming from. Now, how do we get that? We scanned their bracelet, or we scanned their driver's license in order to issue the bracelet, which activates the taps. In all our years, Pete, of having data and buying data, it's never really been available to us, has it, through point of sale or merchant services, to truly understand where the customer's coming from?
Yeah, this is by far the most granular, because the other ones, even a reward system, relied on basically an email, potentially a phone number, but you didn't necessarily know where they came from unless they chose to enter the address. So.
Yep, so this was stunning. Again, we do have a good idea when we design our stores, the way we do our marketing, the way we mail, but the fact that we were pulling people in from 15, 18, even 30 miles away down in Findlay was stunning. What that did, though, and again, we're talking results here, right? It changed the experience in the store. It changed the draw distance. But look at the demographics on the right-hand side. The fact that people are suddenly coming from 15 miles away, well, beyond farmland, there's some small towns in that circle. And literally, if you notice on the top, even at the green service areas, I call it, the 5 miles, 32,000 employees, largely supporting the university and all the sundry businesses, and the 36,000 residents, excluding the students, by the way. That number more than doubled when we started to attract customers in from 15 miles away. I can tell you that that impact is something that we're planning for as we move into other stores, because it affects our marketing, it affects how close we put our stores together and things like that. These are a couple of quick takeaways before Darren goes into a real deep dive, but what we found is a real potential for dollar per ticket increases. How it might work in your business, we can't guarantee, and I'm not here to sell you a sell-for. I'm just telling you what I did. But I can tell you in our business, dollar per ticket is right around $10, $11. Our store, when we opened this in October, we launched in October with this product, or the sell-for system. we achieved about $1.50 per ticket increase. And here we are almost 6 months later, and we have sustained that $1 per 50 ticket increase. That is a material lift to the business, and it gives you a bigger opportunity to improve your labor costs because you have more sales. Theoretically, because the cost of alcohol is less than the cost of food. For you guys who are operators, you know, we're like most people in fast casual. Our target food costs around 35%, maybe a little better, depending on which brand. But alcohol has a raw cost of goods of about 25. So you have a genuine opportunity to improve your cost of goods sold. And if you can get that extra $1 per ticket and deliver it with the same labor, then you have a chance to improve your labor. I already talked about the fact people are driving farther and staying longer. There's a couple things that you need to know, and we didn't know this going in. We planned this project for 6 months to a year. We really didn't understand the impact of wine. As we got deep into it and we got it operational, we got excited, we went to the next level and we went out and we started interviewing other operators in Darren's clientele in the iPort community. And what we found is that if you had wine, your $1 per ticket soared again. If you had wine, you attracted the female audience, which Darren's going to go into in some detail. And a big surprise, which Darren did warn us about, is that craft ciders are very popular. They literally can outsell your craft beer depending on your mix. I think Pete would say one of the big problems with ciders is they're really hard to get, right? There's very limited availability.
Yeah, that was my number one question to the distributor every week is what ciders do you have on tap? Available.
So, yep, and he's got our distributors we're going to talk about in a minute trained to call us and only tell us about what's new. Remember I said we quickly learned in the first 2 months, if you sold through a keg and you put it back on again because you think it's popular, they won't drink it the next time. They want the new stuff. Darren's going to talk about, what do you call that guy in the tapestry? The explorer?
The
guy who wants the rotators?
Partner. Yep.
We're going to talk about that guy. Now, we didn't know about Bud Light. Frankly, I think we were in denial. I think Darren probably told us. But Pete and I are craft beer dudes, and we just didn't want to have anything to do with beer that you can see through. Well, we started getting comments, and social media does that. And my son, who operates our stores, was passionate that we needed domestic beer. We finally caved in when in January, Darren was doing an annual review and said, holy cow, guys, roughly 50% of all beer poured through iPort's platforms is Bud Light. And right behind that, I think, is Michelob Light or something, or Ultra. I'll let him fill it in. We put Bud Light on our taps about 8 or 10 weeks ago. It quickly soared to 50% of our sales. And now we're buying half barrels of it, which make it a lot cheaper. And so we got a nice low price point on the wall. The last couple, we do not currently have coffee or cold pressed coffee. We tried it in other operators. It's awesome. In Ohio, you're required to sell coffee if you sell alcohol. So I think it's a great use of a tap if you have a lot of taps. Kombucha is a great alternative if you're out drinking for the night and you don't want that much more alcohol. It appeals to the wine and the cider and, frankly, the health nut millennial audience. And we did see craft sodas, but we're not doing those too. We are deploying mixed drink cocktails. We plan to in our new stores. We saw those on the road. Again, the reason I'm trying to throw this out at you is that if you're contemplating this space, you want to know what we didn't know. Cocktails are available, whether you're doing margaritas or malt-based, or we had Tito's and soda and one in Chicago the other day. So it's a whole new ball game. You're going to learn a lot more about it today. I'm staying a little bit behind time here. So, Elena?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think what we really learned here is, I think that's why we positioned it this way. Starting with this case study, it's a really pragmatic way to kind of look at the opportunity in fast casual and how you can improve your profitability. We know you're not just sitting on here just wanting to waste your time. So as Chris said, I think that's a great segue, which is what we didn't know. So to introduce that, we're going to have Darren take the lead on the next section, which is really the tapestry of patrons and industry dynamics. And he's really going to talk about how the data really helped guide them and how they've developed their business into a very successful platform and how it's really helped Chris and Pete and other guys continue to grow their business. So go ahead, Darren.
Awesome. Well, here, real quick, Darren, I want to jump into a quick poll of the audience that'll set that up. So for those of you who participated last couple times, thank you very much. Here we are. Again, grab that mouse and share with us how familiar you are with this industry. Again, we saw a mix of folks who are totally new to alcohol. How many of you, even on a personal basis, have actually gone out and seen self-pour, seen literally, a wall full of people pouring their own beer? I appreciate you guys providing input. It helps us in guiding the presentation, and we'll move on really quickly. But thanks again for participating. And here we go. You've heard of it, but never operated. Okay, heard of it or seen it. That's kind of where we were a year and a half ago, right, Pete? Let's see. We got somebody actually operating the business. That's great. And the very familiar, I guess, maybe it's people on the group who know what's going on, and completely new. So if you're completely new, I hope you come away with this feeling really equipped. And if you're contemplating putting it in your restaurant, take notes. Again, as Elena said, there'll be a copy of this available because it's kind of a fire hose. So Darren, with that, I'm going to try to get to the right slide since I'm having a little mousing challenge here. There you go.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Chris. First of all, thank you for having us participate. Obviously in your business and in this event as well. This is exciting for us. So first of all, I pour it, as you introduced, self-serve, beer, wine, a number of different products we are pouring through our system. What's unique about I Pour It, however, is we collect all the data. So when we get into talking through some of these assumptions and the things that we're going to be presenting to you today, it really comes from the data that we're collecting. So what I like to look at is, this early adoption. Really, we started as a business in 2012. We've developed this market over the last 7 years. The current market is still very young. There's about 365 locations throughout the country. There's roughly 8,000 self-pour taps in the industry right now. So what we like to look at is now, there are over 330,000 bars and restaurants in the U.S. market, and we know that there's roughly about 1.7 million beer lines operating. So wow. You can see that this market is still very young, and there's still a lot of opportunity for self-serve and how that is adopted and brought into this marketplace. So as far as, going back to this data, every single person that checks into an I Pour It system not only presents a credit card to open a tab, but we also scan each and every driver's license of the person that's coming into a self-serve location. So you can imagine, with all of the locations that I Pour It currently has and the number of ounces that we've poured, we've collected and aggregated a lot of data. So what do we capture? We capture the age, we capture their gender, and going back to this proximity report that you presented earlier, we also capture their zip code. With all of that, we also capture the number of ounces that are poured, the type of product. We know what the average retail price is on products and the styles, and we use that to present that data not only to potential operators in this market, but also our current operators use that to ensure that they are bringing the right experience and the right products and the right types of mixtures of products for their own success in their business. So you can see here that we have a...
Sorry to interrupt, Aaron. I was going to say this is a snapshot of a report from our store. I think it was for a week or whatever the period was, but it was stunning as an operator to be able to look down and go, wow, you can see in the middle that my average age of my customer is 34. That was stunning because we're in a college town where people are 20. We quickly figured out our customer was not the college student. It's the people who support the system, right? And, little tidbits like, how many beers are they pouring or how many flavors are they trying and how much alcohol are they actually consuming? I mean, this is, this makes me crazy excited as a data geek, right, Pete?
And really what you're showing here is relatively flat compared to all of the data we collect. You know, here you're showing that your average age is 35 years old, which kind of fits into the demographic that we see across the country. But we can actually break that up by demographics, and I think we're going to get into that, I believe, on our next slide.
Yeah, we will jump into that. And to the chart on the right, as Darren and I were preparing this morning, excuse me, Darren does all kinds of analytics, but he had not gone quite as granular in this. I mean, he can go way more granular than I do. But this chart was one that we prepared for our internal investors as we were evaluating how many taps to put in each installation. Pete and I had a square footage limitation when we did our bowling green store, and we ended up at 18 taps because that's what we could, you know, lose 2 tables and get a beer wall or thereabouts. But when we, after that started to go very well, we did a deep dive and went out and interviewed a bunch of operators. And these are a mixture of our actual data. For example, on the 18 tap example, the second bar, that's an 18 tap installation, which is ours. And we average 3.7 beers poured per customer. I mean, they go to 3.7 taps on average and pull the handle, typically pouring the pour size you see is 5.2 ounces. But as we started talking to larger and larger operators, and they would go, hey, let me go look at the report real quick. And they would report back what they had. And the reality is that it is a multiplying effect. The customers out at the 60 tap installations, which might have 12 taps of wine and some mixed drinks, they're actually trying 5 or more handles, right? They're trying more stuff. And Pete said he loved sampling. I can tell you, I was in a Chicago self-pour installation about a week ago, and I couldn't drink anymore after I got past the 6 taps that I wanted to try, right? But it would have been nice to have cold pressed coffee, but.
Okay, so, you know, I think you wanted to go through this, Chris.
Forgive me.
Okay, sounds like Chris's volume went out. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yeah, I'm muted for just a second.
I got you, Darren.
Yeah, go ahead and run with it for a second. I have no idea what that is out there.
Okay, so although, you know, self-serve really is applied to a number of different markets, we're really concentrating on this fast casual dining application. The key thing here is just like, you know, Chris brought up earlier is, listen, you're waiting in line to order your pizza. We find that in fast casual applications, people don't want to wait in line for another beer. So the key thing here is there's no waiting. You can have as many you know, tasters and as many products as you want without having to get back into line. So it really gives the patron there's no hurdles that they have to jump over to essentially enjoy more product.
Well, and Darren's right. Sorry to jump back in. I literally think it was a weed blower or something. Who knows? It's all good fun. But in fast casual, one of the reasons people come down to fast casual, all the surveys say they're on the move, right? They're going to dinner. They're picking up the kids. They're on their way home from work. They want to pick out what they want. And by the way, even with our amazing variety, they pick the same thing every time. Customers are very redundant. But in the same fashion, when they realize they could just grab a beer, literally the minute their beer is finished, the minute their pizza's finished or their burrito's finished, they're leaving the restaurant. So they don't want to wait for a bartender. They don't want to wait to be served. And we didn't invent it. We're just adding alcohol into an environment where the customer doesn't want to wait. And on the flip side and the fun side of that, Darren, the shop in Minneapolis, first draft that we went to, when that shop gets revved up, and that's a tap room, a big tap room, right, 50 some odd taps, when it gets revved up, people are shoulder to shoulder at the wall. You simultaneously have 10, 12, 15 people pouring at the same time. There's no waiting. I can't overemphasize how important that is. Same thing at Brewport Tap Room in Culver City, right? It is wall-to-wall people, and that's where I got the idea of the boxes, right? When people there just grab a box of flight glasses, walk down, scan the tablets, and click handles till they've got 4 full and go back to their table. Absolutely amazing new way to do this.
Hey, Darren, I got a question.
Yes.
So on the report, I noticed it said 467 unique patrons, 402 new. So in 12 months, Chris and Peter will be able to look at this dashboard and see, hey, we had 600 people this month, 302 were brand new.
Yeah,
That's exactly
you
right.
hit a very important piece of the data collection, because every single patron is a unique visitor. And so when that unique visitor comes to the location a second time, or even goes to a second location, like your unique visitor will go from Bowling Green to Lima or Lima, and you'll know that that is a return customer. So there's going to be a lot of information that the rapid fired and hothead burrito locations are going to gather from unique and repeat business as well.
Well, our next slide goes to the data too. The notion of the leaderboard. So before I jump into that, yeah, go ahead, Darren, and tell us a little bit more about what the sales is and where these numbers come from.
Well, this is the part I love so much, because, we've been in this business since 2012, and we've really ramped up and developed this market since about the end of 2015, 16. It's really started to grow. But what we're very excited about is we've poured over 125 million ounces through the iPour It system. And when you look at the magnitude of that for our operators, because we know the average sales price across the board, we've generated over $68 million of top line revenues for our operators. And so when you just think of that, it's just really exciting. I know it's not a lot right now. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for this self-serve across the country and across various markets, but that's critical to being successful and understanding that. Going back to what Matt Plapp had mentioned, we've counted all of our unique patrons, and so we know over 8.5 million unique patrons have checked in and used our systems. And because we're all over the country, not just in this region, in the Ohio region, but throughout the country, every single one of these locations have their own type of beers and brewery. So we have over 32,000 beverages in our library that we manage, and we spend a lot of time and effort to make sure that this is done right for a perfect operation and a absolutely perfect patron experience. So we do all of that work for you, for our operators.
Well, and Darren, what I'm excited about this. Go ahead. Is that Pete? This display on the screen is a report. You can run this anytime during the day. It's on the dashboard of the system internally. It's telling you what's selling today, right? And it's got a trend in there versus the last time you ran the report or whatever date range you had. But it's super interesting for me to know that Space Bloody Orange is selling like crazy. Holy cow, Pete, order more, since Pete has to do the ordering. But more importantly, that I can call Darren and say, Darren, what's moving? That's how we found out about Bud Light, right? And one of the things that the iPour It team can help us with, and we're getting very much more intimate about, is what's moving, right? This is a seasonal business. We waited until the first freeze, and then we put on, a 13% barrel-aged stout, and we had the seasonal beers, and I know that we're coming right up on spring now. Sours are going to hit. It's going to be time for the summer beers, right? Now, Pete, you're all about that. Rotating right stuff at the right time.
Right. Yeah. Like right now, we're trying to bring in some more Hefeweizen and some light beers. We always try to keep a nice variety of fruity beers on. So definitely hitting the seasonal is great, and being able to tap iPour It for info is super helpful.
Yep. So anyway, it's amazing granularity and it's real time. So Darren's going to take us on a tour through the tapestry of customers.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I love talking about this because it really defines a strategy for your business, and you use the data to ensure that your strategy is working in your business. So the product mix and the people that we see, we aggregate these by gender, by age, obviously, by what they drink. And we're finding that by ensuring that you have a strategy based on what your four, what we call our four key demographics, as long as you have those products that each and every one of these demographics require to be successful, the more opportunity you have for higher gross margin, more patrons, even different people who have not tried a certain product, they're going to try it if it's a premium product. So we find that this strategy that we're going to get into next is really critical. I don't know if you want me to talk about the demographics right this second. I think you wanted to go.
Yeah, I'm going to let you run through the tapestry. One quick thing I would add is that when I was touring the country interviewing operators, I heard the same thing from several of them, and that was, don't be afraid to put an expensive beer or a wine on the wall, right? That what'll happen, I think it was the guys in Champaign, Illinois, said the most expensive beer, so it's something in a bar, you'd get it in a 10-ounce glass. It's a half pour, and it'd be $9. But effectively, it's an 18-ounce pint. They turn that keg, whatever's on that tap, turns faster than everything in the whole place because everybody pours a couple ounces of it, right? I heard the same thing in Brewport where they have like 12 taps of wine. They keep one super premium wine on. You know, wine's what, $1.25 an ounce retail? They keep one that's $1.75, and everybody tries it. So we're not being vague here. You have to actively manage the product inventory to maintain, A, I've got all the bases covered, all four in your example, and B, I've got teaser stuff that's expensive that everybody wants to test but won't drink a pint of, and that I've got to have that fallback where he's going to talk about the loyalists. So with that, let's jump into the tapestry.
Okay, so there's four key demographics that we've learned. The first one is a female demographic, and she's made up into two subsections. So the female is very, very critical because they want to participate in this. And we've learned that the 40 plus female demographic, they could become a veto vote on where, you know, the family goes or where the date night goes for that matter. We've also learned that she's not very price sensitive, where she's very interested in drinking wines. And we find that she prefers white wine, red wine, and cider. So our data has shown us that this demographic, you need to have a Chardonnay, a Pinot Gris, Sauvignon Blanc. As far as your red wines, you definitely need some Cabs, some Pinots. We're finding that the female 40 plus, they love rosé. Their big saying is rosé all day. So you have to have a rosé on there. And
so what I'm saying there, Darren, is that's 6 taps. That's 6 taps.
Yeah,
if you're talking about how many taps to do.
So here, when we get in, so we're going to go through the 4 demographics, and then we're going to go into the strategy and how that lays out on a wall, because it's really important to how many taps do I choose? It's not just about how much revenue do I want to take advantage of. The same thing is who am I serving, and what products am I going to have on that wall to ensure that I have a pricing, a product, and a place strategy. So as you get into your female millennial, of course, she's, you know, that 28 to 37-year-old female or 35-year-old female. She too is critical, and she's usually traveling with her millennial male friends. We find that she likes sweeter products. She's a little bit price adverse, but not much. And they like unique flavors. So we find that she prefers ciders, sours like crazy. Gotta have these sours. This millennial female loves sours, lambics, and barrel aged, the sweeter beers. So then going into our next, is that our next one? No, you want to go?
Yeah, bumped it. Sorry about that.
The next one we've named our loyalist, and he's drinking his dad's beer, and he's the guy that you walk into a craft beer joint, and he's the guy who says, I'll take a Michelob Ultra, or I'll take, a Bud Light. Believe it or not, he's a really critical piece to your business. He values quantity over quality. He travels with other like-minded loyalists. What I think about is, the softball team, the bowling group. They join their other fathers after their boys' ball game. They're used to drinking pitchers, and those guys like
right.
domestic. Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Light. But then if you go into, because they do explore, we do find that they do explore, and they explore into the blondes, the lagers, the pilsners that don't fall too far outside of the Bud Lights and the Coors Lights. Going back to one of our reports that we did the end of September, took us over a year period of time of data. We poured over 48 million ounces through our technology. And I kind of joke about this because we love the craft beer industry, but we found that the number one and number two on the wall across the country was Bud Light and Coors Light. So
Wow.
in this fast casual market, especially in pizza, as much as maybe we don't like it, you know, from a craft beer perspective, your customers want it. Yeah.
Darren, I got a question.
Yes.
Do you find we have Bud Light on right now in Bowling Green? So are you finding they have Bud Light and Coors Light, or is it depending on market where they have Bud Light or Coors Light?
It really depends. I mean, we have a location in South Dakota who has 5 domestics on, and
Okay.
it's interesting because he has 5 domestics on because he is literally 3 blocks away from a tournament softball field. And guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are hungry after the game, and they want the Ultras, they want the Bud Lights, the Coors Lights, the Miller Lights. That's just the way these guys roll.
Do they use a pitcher in that shop?
I don't know if they do or not, but there are a few who do, you know, in the pizza market that do still pour a few pitchers.
Wow. So now
So
our
now we
favorite
go
guy.
into
He's my
what
favorite guy.
So this is the key one. He's really important. And the reason I say he is because the data actually tells us he's a he. He's who we've named the Explorer. And, you know, he may visit this location more than once per week. He may be with his buddies on Monday night, and then he'll come back with his crew, with his wife or his girlfriend, and bring his other friends in. So he may come into your location a couple of times per week. He enjoys the tasting experience. He's very craft focused. You know, he eats out 5 nights per week. And what we find with him is he goes to the wall and wants to pour premium, rare, you know, not products that he normally sees on a regular basis. Across all of our locations, he pours 4.7 ounces per pour, and he visits the beer wall 5.5 times. And he essentially pours and spends about $14.15, 25 cents per visit. So what do we do for him? We want to make sure that there are rare products on, premium products, limited releases. We want to make sure that he is getting rotators. So when he is in on Monday night, there are 5 to 6, maybe even 10, depending on the size of your location, that are different products from the night he visits or Friday night when he visits. So he's a key money maker in a business.
Got it. So, Elena, why don't you take us through this, and then we'll jump into a transition. We'll let you talk about how to manage the tapestry operationally, Darren, in just a minute.
Yeah, I think this is really key because we got a really successful case study. Then we got a lot of really interesting dynamics on the actual industry. So it all sounds fantastic, right? But I think one of the things that we learned from working with Darren is there's some really key challenges as to how to do this deployment and self-pour. So we're going to have Darren and Chris take you through we really boiled it down to 4 key challenges. And if you're going to go through this process, and more importantly, how we can partner with you to actually help you navigate this based on the lessons we've already learned. So, and again, just want to reiterate this. There's so much information we're providing, but there's going to be a link to the recording if you missed any of this and taking notes after we're done with this. So Chris, over to you and to Darren on section 3.
All right. Well, let's start off with a quick poll of what your experience is for those of you who have alcohol venues, because there's a few folks on the line who do. What are the biggest challenges that you faced marketing your business? I mean, Matt's been helping people market bars and restaurants for a long time. They have their challenges different from fast casual, trying to drive traffic, keep nights interesting. Matt, while we're doing the poll, what are the most notable things that you help people do to spice up the week?
To spice up the week, well, try and drive business.
Trivia nights, things like.
Yeah, to try and drive business to somewhere they might not have it. I've had clients do mystery nights and just different promotions during the week that, you know, I've had clients tell me, hey, I've got my rent, my water, my electric due on Mondays, just like I do Saturday night. So they'll do things to try and drive people in during those times. And like you had the one you did with Bowling Green, the beer happy hour, and we advertised looking for beer testers. And it was amazing to me how many people, when they saw that, they thought, like, you think of food testers, like here in Cincinnati, Procter & Gamble always has product testers, and people are like, heck, I want to be a beer tester. Who doesn't? So, it brought people in, they spent money, and they came back.
Yep, and we've been able to use the Facebook promotions, which we'll talk about coming up next month, to drive people in for Thursday night tap takeovers with the local brewer and that sort of thing. But again, I see about half the folks reiterating no experience with bars or restaurants that have alcohol. So again, I hope this is helpful to you guys. For those of you who are doing it, see a little bit of all the challenges, right? Liquor licenses, some states they're easy, some states they're not. We find to use great attorneys for them, but beyond these obvious things about designing the restaurant and permitting and licensing, there's the biggest challenges that we see that were the biggest learning curve that we had to get our arms around and that we're dealing with as a brand and across our multiple stores is going to be operating and marketing this business. So I see a couple comments about that. Let's jump in, if I can get to the right slide again. And Darren, these are your 4 topics, but let me just jump in on this real quick. For Pete and I, it was an eye-opening experience to go through the first self-pour experience. And what we realized is that, fortunately we had an operating restaurant, so it wasn't a new build. Now we are in the middle of doing new builds, and we think about it a lot differently, right? But people need to understand that it's a significant project, and the guys that I pour it have a lot of experience at it, right? And you guys work with a lot of contractors, or the local CIs, as you call them, who work in certain markets. But this is not a little hobby project. This is not adding an ice cream bar. This is a deliberate business decision, just like turning on, your third-party delivery services, which we all thought was going to be easy, and it turned out to be quite a deal. So, Darren, could you talk just a little bit about how you guys support people going through what we call the timeline to pour, the time to pour process?
So I think this is perfect. We have a consultative sales process, and we have a lot of operators who ask us questions, should I do this? Should I do that? What do I do here? We use the data to present to them and say, hey, we don't know all the answers to your specific questions, but I can give you the data and what we've learned, and you make the decision on what's right for your business. So going through this, through this process, this consultative process, we use the data to come up with pro formas. And we have found that, our locations on average in fast casual, they're serving anywhere between 18 and upwards of 40% of their alcohol to food. We have some locations that are doing 100% revenues through the iPour It system. But part of the success is, how do you architect this? We help with ideas for laying out the location. As far as the permitting and all that piece, we obviously leave that to the operator and the architect who does that. We have relationships with certified beer installers throughout the country that we go to. The key thing is really, how do you set up the self-serve system to serve your patrons and your operation the best? And obviously we guide our operators to that as well. So in the flow,
there's a lot of considerations in there that we discovered as we put it in. On the top right, you can see one of our new cantina formats. What you don't realize is that's coming right off of the service line, right off of the queue area. So as you walk to that first tap on the right-hand side, you got tacos in your hand, right? One of the things that we worked on in that store is our third implementation, I believe, is we really thought through, how's that customer going to flow. The one on the bottom left was our first install. We did essentially a standalone cabinet. That was an example of, what you guys referred to as a long draw. The walk-in cooler is 80 feet away in the back room. The cabinet is there displaying everything, and in a similar fashion, it's located so as you come off of the queue line, you come past the Pepsi machine, you can just see you're walking right across in front of the beer, right? But, there's little things we didn't anticipate, like if everybody comes in during a rush, and I keep looking at the monitors, I apologize. If everybody comes in during a rush and gets bracelets and starts pouring beer, guess what? They all get up and leave at the same time. if they get up and leave at the same time and you're still in the middle of the rush, they're going to all walk back to the point of sale and try to turn in their bracelets and cash out, right? This was a holy cow moment in the middle of our, $5,000 lift in sales that first 3 weeks, right? Or, per week. So, these are little things that we're now going, oh, we got to compensate for that. So, it's not quite the wild, wild west. It's a little more civilized, but you've got to ask a lot of questions. You got to talk to other operators, and you've got to really figure it out. For us, we've started to standardize how and why we do it. But I'm really showing these 3 examples on the screen because it varies wildly, right? Some of your locations that I've been in, Darren, some of your operators have 50 taps on one wall. It's like a giant wall, right? Personally, I like the essentially the walk-in cooler in the middle of the venue, breaking the room up. Great idea, which is a concept we're embracing in our new tap room and large format cantina formats. But I think you would say the variety of installations varies as much as your clients vary, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's see. And now Darren's favorite topic. So we talked about designing it and flow. Now this is how do you operate this darn business?
So again, how do you use this data to ensure that you're providing a great product for your patrons and an experience for your patrons, but at the same time taking advantage of the gross sales and the gross margins of product. So going back to our 4 demographics, we like to now lay out, okay, if you're looking at a 24 tap system and you have 40 plus year old women, you definitely need a white wine, a red wine, a cider. And when you look at your millennial demographic for female, you'll want your sour, your ciders, and maybe a sweeter beer. So now you start counting. Okay, now I got this many taps. I got that many taps. When you look at your loyalist, if loyalist is an important part of it, hey, you need 1 or 2 domestic products. And then, of course, our explorer, he gets to take up most of the wall because he's the one who really is the one that likes the rotator. So what we've tried to do is we've broken this up by demographic, which we can talk through the operators when you start designing your wall. But we also look at it as a product or a style, light to dark. And then you look at it from a pricing strategy because, again, your explorer likes to go to the right-hand side of the offering to start with premium products that he hasn't seen before, ones that you're going to make a higher gross revenue off of, higher gross margin. He's going to go to those first before he goes to his go-to product, which is on the left-hand side. So this is really
Darren, you're absolutely right about your explorer, right? Is that the right term? That guy brings people with him. We see that guy coming back, and so he's the one who'll come frequently. He'll come to get the rotating stock. But we've also noticed in our stores, we're still at maybe 70, 80% of the patrons each day have never done it before, right? So the guy returning is with different groups and different people. But to the loyalists, the only, let's call it negative comments that we got while I was in the store, Pete and I went and hosted the beer wall for the first month, as we called it. And it's that older gentleman in the group of 7 people who just wants a Miller. And if you frustrate him, it's a bad scene. So, again, looking back, get those couple domestics, rotate the craft fast, let that guy bring his family, bring his friends, and they will drive your business. And Darren, you are absolutely right about the females. We did not have wine in the beginning. We're currently using bottled wine and wine in those little glasses that were on Shark Tank because we're with the 80-foot lines, wine's not practical. We'll adapt soon, and our new implementations have wine. But the point is, the wife is like this, right?
They want to participate.
She's not happy if you don't have wine. He's drinking cool wine. He's actually had 2.5 pints, and she is a sourpuss. And it's not her fault. It's we didn't deal with the product issue going in, so bad on us. But we've learned and we adapted, and those beautiful pictures you saw of the cantina, they're going in right.
Perfect.
Let's talk about inventory management. So again, just recapping, we talked about the issues to get to time to pour. And as you work on that, the next challenge is design and planning and how it works and mixing and managing your inventory. But Pete manages all this real time. Pete, could you just talk a little bit about how you've got this set up so you can do it remotely from Dayton across multiple stores, and and what really has to happen in the store versus what you can do centrally.
Yeah, I currently manage all the ordering, which is great with the reps. Simply have the reps call, text, or email each week. The ones that do get my business more often than the ones that don't. So that's been great. Again, they give me a list of everything that's new. They don't tell me what I've ordered typically. They say, this is exactly what we got. I know what you're looking for now after 6 months. And typically we order 1 to 2 beers. So I can manage all of, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So manage the ordering. We use FinTech, which is available nationwide for billing. Makes it super simple in the stores, and we get all the invoices. I can look at all the invoices online. I don't have to wait for the store to get it to me or hope they enter the right amount. Right now, we currently use a spreadsheet to manage between our beer wall hosts, so the guy in the store or lady in the store managing the beer wall, and myself to determine the prices, what's coming up next, what's queued up, and where we should be making changes based on what's selling and what's not selling. And then I can just check into each location remotely, and some of the pictures you see right there are charts pulled right from iPort. Those aren't made up or processed by us. It's a live service by their server. So you can actually do a lot remotely. I mean, I'll be managing 3 or 4 locations here soon remotely, and just relying on somebody basically to change the kegs.
Yeah, we have a beer wall host concept we'll talk about in a minute. I put a little picture of Untapped up in the right-hand side. For those of you who are craft beer fans and already use it, you will understand. Pete was passionate when we did it. We had to get on Untapped. I honestly didn't understand why. We turned it on, so every time a keg changes, it's synchronized through Pete's efforts to Untapped. People literally come in the door and say, I saw you put on, whatever crazy thing, Urban Artifact, slide rule. I want to try it. Where is it? They don't even want pizza, right? The guy who walks in the door from Untapped is chasing a beverage. They think it's cool. They literally sit in your lobby and comment. We have a 60-inch display over the beer wall. You can see their comments rolling across the bottom. We had a cute little couple, 2 little old gals, professors, right? They're practically retired. They literally were on a binge to try at least 7 beers each. Not much. They weren't drinking heavily, but they were drinking and commenting on every single one. This Untapped thing is a hobby for some people. This is just a tease into the social media issue. Pete, I developed this. Remember yesterday I was asking you for the distributors. Folks, right. In our business, we use Cisco, where we use PFG to deliver all of our product. It's one supplier, maybe 2 suppliers in a store. We get it all wired down, and managers order twice a week, and it's easy. When we put this thing in, we were descended upon like vultures by literally 7 distributors coming from all over creation, some driving from like Cleveland or Detroit. I mean, national guys, local guys, sales reps, some knew what they were doing. I remember some of them, all they knew was domestic. They didn't even speak craft beer. And then once you finally get them settled down and to stop coming to the store every week and wearing out the store staff, then you realize, the local breweries, they're microbrews, they're not in distribution yet. So we have to drive and pick up the kegs, or they send their rep up. So there's 7 more reps dropping by once a week. So vendor management is not to be taken lightly. For us in fast casual, we had to get our head around this, and we had to figure out and do what Pete's doing, where it's centrally managed. And again, with each new opening, there'll be a little bit of vendor control until they figure it out. But for those of you who are new into this space, or if you have a fast casual restaurant or you're thinking about putting together either fast casual or a bar tap room format, and you've never been in this, it is something to be actively managed, or they will manage you.
Correct.
Good point.
Real quick, by the way, the last point on that is the 125 labels. Pete, I just striped that on a spreadsheet yesterday to check. But again, we have 18 taps. We rotate about 5 kegs a week. We buy all 6 barrels or sixtels as they call them, right? But they are rolling fast. And one of the challenges with these beer distributors is they will come to you with their list of 300 beers. But when Pete orders craft beer and says, what's new, there's 3, and 2 of those aren't in stock. So, right? I mean, this is a hand-to-hand combat thing in the beginning until, like Pete said, you get your people conditioned, only call me with the cool new stuff, check your list, and if I ordered it last week, don't try to sell it to me, right?
Yeah, and you got to force them to ask you have to actively pursue other beers because they definitely have an agenda on what they want to push in most distributors.
That's right.
So
Yep.
don't be afraid just to say, now give me everything else you got, not just X, Y, or Z. So.
Yeah, it's clear they have incentives with certain products or something.
Somehow,
so
yeah.
I touched on Untapped, and by the way, Pete is in our brands. He handles the marketing and technology and all this stuff you see visually. I'm a neophyte to this social media stuff. It's had a crash course the last 6 months, but my crash course began when we put the beer wall into our one store, and Matt Plapp was with us. Matt helped us put this whole program together, came out and shot some videos with us along with Pete. You can see on here, I literally just went to our video section on that store's Facebook page, and this was all bunched up as a group back from October. But notice the view counts. Again, I said that first customer video went to 30,000 views in a matter of days. These others hitting 7,000 views or 15,000 views. I mean, this is substantial stuff. So if you are not working with the social media, if you don't manage social media, you risk it whipsawing you, right? Customers are going to tell people about the experience, but on the good side, things like Instagram, and I know we're running out of time here, Instagram, people are Instagramming themselves. You know, we do our own Instagram and Twitter. When we launched, people are taking selfies in front of the beer wall, pouring a beer, taking a selfie. If you come at this with all guns blazing, and that's what Matt does, Matt, we'll talk about that more in April, but any thoughts real quick about, you know, what made it click when we launched the beer wall? That was your first beer wall experience, right?
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest thing was that it wasn't a professionally produced experience. It was organic. It was the man right here on the camera, on Peter, talking to customers. Hey, what do you think of the beer wall? Have you ever seen anything like this? And showing them how to do it. Because that was a big thing that, like, I had friends of mine, they're like, that's really cool. Where's the bartender? When they saw the video, I'm like, well, no, it's a self-serve beer. I'd explain it to them. So the one video explained it. And, you know, to put that in perspective too, those views were pretty targeted, and there was a lot of organic views on there as well. But we also took those views and piggybacked. Like, the reason that one has 15,000 people on it views is because the 33,000 view one funneled into that one. So those people then saw the new beer testers, and that had a link they clicked to opt in. I think we had something like 1,200 people, I don't know, 800 people opt in from that video that got into Facebook Messenger, got a promotion to come into the restaurant, and it drove some sales.
Yep. So this is really critical. Guys, I realize that, and guys and gals in the audience, that we've taken a lot of time. Melinda, I'm going to move real quick through this. The last section we want to touch on is really how you can participate in our program. I'm going to skip the poll because we're short on time. There's 4 ways that you can work with us, and whether you want to work with us or you want to work with Darren's team, there's many ways to do that. But our strategy is we are operators. We invest in building stores. We do not invest in real estate. We have partners who will build real estate for us so we can create locations. So when we are working with potential operators, what we find is the first category is folks who've been in a brand, been operating, been a general manager for a long time, but they want to break out on their own. They're not yet a franchisee. They don't own their own restaurant. We can help it. We can fund. We can operate. You'll see that in the materials you get after the event. But if you're interested, if you put your time in and you're ready to break out, or you're talking to iPort about building your own restaurant, whether you go do your own with them together because they're our partner, that's great. If you're interested in talking to us, we'd love to talk about that. We also have partners that are interested in, that are currently operating many stores in a market. They're in Burger King. They're in a steakhouse chain. They're in, a friend of ours built tilted kilts all over the place. And they're looking to cross over into fast casual. It's the second part of our business is doing joint venture arrangements so we can co-invest to develop the market where that operator already operates. As we put it, we co-fund and you operate. Again, this is for established operators who have their own stores, their own supervisors. And our goal is, rather than having them come into the self-pour space or into our fast casual space and do 1 or 2 stores, if we co-invest, they can do many more stores together. And building on that, we've met an awful lot of folks who say, yeah, that's a great idea, but I don't want to operate anymore. I like the space. I just want to deploy some capital in it. And those we refer to as joint venture limited partners. The limited partners, we lead the investments, but they can invest with us to either back the independent operators or the JV operators. And for those of you who are in the franchise space, who are in fast casual, we work with a lot of folks who come over, again, from Burger King or, our favorite Subways and other operators like that. We have a lot of states where We are expanding rapidly, so we're in a dozen or 15 states. The green states are the ones that we're targeting for the more aggressive expansion where we are willing to co-invest. But there's an opportunity with both of our brands to be in control of an entire state. In the subway system, they call them development agents. We refer to them as area developers. We are willing to work with area developers who would take on a state like Illinois and literally control all the restaurants in Illinois as an area developer, and we're willing to back them and participate with them so we can accelerate their expansion, not just financially, but through our partnerships to create locations. Everybody needs locations. We're going to have an entire event about locations. So there's a quick summary. There's 4 ways to work with us. We're doing the educational series to get people exposed to the group, exposed to what's going on. We're working with Darren and team because we love the technology and we're going really fast and we see lots of opportunities. Even if we put up buildings and somebody puts a bar in them, that's okay too. But it's a win-win. You'll get some information after the event so you know how to reach us if you're interested. I hope you've enjoyed the event today. I appreciate the fact that about 80% of the audience has stayed with us all the way through. So this really is the end of the presentation. For those of you who have any curiosity about what we actually do in our brand with our stores, I added just a couple slides. Feel free to go do your thing, but if you're interested, I'll do them really quickly. As a franchise system, which my brothers founded, I'm a store development company. The franchise systems are opening about 1 store a month. We hit about 100 stores in 10 years, and we are marching on. Growing very steadily across many states. We originally were essentially, my brother knocked off Chipotle, doubled the amount of ingredients, made the place more fun, expanded the product set. We drive that business as Pete does from a marketing perspective with endless limited time offers. I mean, Pete, who would ever thought teriyaki chicken would be the hottest selling thing in teriyaki bowls would crush it in a Mexican restaurant. Pete and the team and the engineering. Yeah, it is hot. When the promo ended, people begged us on Facebook to bring it back. Where'd the teriyaki go, right? Toasted, we have invented the concept in this market segment of toasted burritos and bowls and tacos, and it's just game-changing. It's fun. Pete, congratulations for all the amazing stuff you do with the video, and we had a great food team. Rapid Fire was actually created about 3 years ago, I guess now, 2015. Ray traveled around the country, looked at the market, saw what Blaze and Mod and Pyology were doing, but they all had an Achilles heel. They all did a craft product, but they did it very slowly. At Mod Pizza, right around the corner from my house, the old Seattle coffee people, you can have a half a pint of beer before your pizza's done. In our operation, you can go see this time-lapse video if you want, but literally the pizza's cooked in 180 seconds. You have barely turned away from the cash register, swiping your card and put it in your wallet when your pizza's cooked. In fact, just enough time maybe to get to the beer wall. It is a fast casual environment. This is what they look like. Essentially, you drop the beer wall in the other side of the restaurant, so you come off the line and get her done. It's just amazing variety, twice as much stuff, and doing it really, really fast. And this goes back to our self-casual alcohol theme. It doesn't go any good to have alcohol if they have to wait for it, if you have to have a server, if they have to go to a bartender. We have experimented with a bartender format, and it is a bit of a bottleneck, which is why we're going self-pour. So again, we're growing fast, we're going places. If you have some interest in it, love to do it. If we simply inspired you to go take on a project and attack the market with I4It, congratulations, Darren. I know we had a couple of people come to see you at the booth last month that said, hey, I saw those webinars, I want to go do this. So we'd love to have you be part of our system, or Darren, and look us up if you have further interest, and be on standby. We'll send out the invitations in a couple weeks for the April event. This will all be all about the battle for locations. I misspoke earlier. Mass event will be in May. We'll talk about social media marketing in May, but we're going to talk about different ways to accelerate your growth, working through our build-to-suit partnerships, working through our building conversions partnerships, and whether you do it with your brand or our brand, we all win. So thanks for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Chris.
Darren, thanks for joining us and being a part of it. Appreciate all your support. Matt, thank you for everything. I'm going to learn the social media stuff yet. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.